Another week, another low for the Indian rupee. It is shaping up to be a horrible December for the Indian currency. Last week, it breached 90 against the dollar, 90 Indian rupees for $1 and this week the fall continued. The rupee registered another record low today. It fell to 90.55 against the US dollar. The previous low was around 90.3. Later in the day, it appeared to stabilize. The rupee ended trading at 90.4. Still, it's a pretty bad day. The Indian rupee is the worst performing currency in Asia this year. It has plunged nearly 6% since January. This week alone, it has slid by 0.5%, and this is despite some RBI intervention. The RBI is the Reserve Bank of India. It is India's central bank. It usually props up the rupee. It sells US dollars in the open market to buy the Indian currency. Now, this tends to increase the demand and by extension, the value of the rupee. Until last week, the RBI was not doing this. They were not propping up the rupee. They tried to defend the 90 per dollar mark, but after that they gave up. But then this week, traders say that the RBI stepped in again. They likely sold dollars to boost the rupee, and yet the currency crashed. So what is wrong with the Indian rupee? And what does this fall mean for you? The main factor dragging the rupee is the US tariff. Most major economies have struck a trade deal with Washington, but India has not. A US trade team visited New Delhi this week. They held 2 days of talks. Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to US President Donald Trump, and yet there is no sign of a trade deal. In public, India says it is under no pressure. The Commerce Minister has said that there is no deadline for this deal.
I've said many times that all agreements, all discussions have many different angles. Many dots have to be connected, and we never negotiate deals with deadlines.
Well, the government may sound confident, but the lack of a deal is worrying investors. They're pulling out money from Indian stocks. Look at this year's data. Foreign investors have pulled out $18 billion so far. They are moving to other Asian markets like Taiwan and South Korea. And when investors leave, they convert their rupees into dollars, meaning more demand for the dollar and less demand for the Indian rupee. This is the main reason why the Indian currency is falling. Now, what does it mean for you? Well, a falling rupee leads to rising inflation. Let me explain how. India is a net importer of goods. We buy more things from the world than we sell. And we are talking crucial items here, like oil, for example. Say 1 barrel of oil is selling for $1. So in the month of January this year, that was 85 rupees for 1 barrel of oil. Today, that same barrel would cost more than 90 rupees. That's because the rupee has lost value. And this affects every item, whether it's fertilizers or machines or even electronics. A plunging rupee will make all these things more expensive. The question is, how expensive? Well, some experts have done the math. If the rupee falls by 5%, the inflation rises by 0.3 to 0.4%. Now, as things stand, India can manage that because inflation is largely under control in India. The data for November was in fact published today. Retail prices rose by just 0.71% last month. That's slightly higher from October, 0.25% in October. And it's well below the RBI's target of 2%, meaning India has some wiggle room here. Also, the fundamentals look pretty solid. The Indian economy grew by more than 8% in the last quarter. Domestic consumption has also picked up. So experts say do not panic. This is not a reflection on the overall health of the Indian economy. Having said that, it is a reality check because in theory, the rupee should be appreciating right now. Again, let me explain. 2025 has been a bad year for the dollar. The US currency has lost around 11% of its value. That's the worst since the 1970s, which means that the rupee should be appreciating, not depreciating. And that's a commentary on our trade ties. The US makes up almost 24% of India's total exports. That sort of dependence can create pressures. As of now, the government is not panicking. They're not striking a bad deal to arrest the rupee slide, but in the long run, there must be a rethink. India must expand and diversify its exports. Only then will the rupee find real value.
I was born into revolution. I inherited power like a crown. What I delivered was isolation. I built a personality cult that touched every home. Millions suffered hunger under my rule, but no one dared to speak. I ruled from palaces. My people queued for rice. I called myself the dear leader. History calls me something else, the dictator. Who am I?